So this is what I'll do for vibrato when I need to. It's a really interesting sound, and it's a really interesting part. The song is Gimme 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 by ABBA, and I chose to do it on the ARP Odyssey because that's what I saw them play in the video, and it seems to work. The sound is so heavily, doubled with real strings that it's hard to say what the synth is. So I wanted to do it on the Odyssey because it's not often used in too many videos, and it has a really distinctive sound. So I think it works really well with the strings because it's kind of like a bit thinner, and I don't know how to describe, like Odyssey characteristic, which is a very kind of not glossy sound like the Mini Moog has, like this sort of shine to it. This is, like, in my mind, how I describe sounds, and it's important that you describe the sounds in your own mind in your own way, because it would be important to you to help you get the sound that you're looking for. The adjectives that I use work for me, and then it helps me know if I'm going to use a Mini Moog or I'm going to go to the Odyssey, like why am I doing it? And it could be for reasons of sound quality, it could be because of the wheels that are going to help you with the expression, or in this case, like I really want to put indentations into my fingers. So the later Odysseys actually have these little buttons that you can press and you can get vibrato. With this instrument, I'm literally adding modulation to both oscillators at the same time with my finger, to move both of these attenuators. It would be a lot easier if I only had to move one attenuator. So let's get into the sound and you'll understand more what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So here we are in front of the Odyssey. Let's take a closer look. The Odyssey is very similar to the ARP 2600. It's a 2-oscillator synth instead of a 3-oscillator synth. So let's just break it down. Just look at the front panel, because that's the first thing I do, so I know where to go, right? Because you can just look at this and it's like a lot of colored, attenuators or faders, right? I don't see any knobs, and I see some switches. So that's my first observation. Actually, I see one knob and I see a lever. So we're thorough, right? Now I see, and there's an on-off switch. That's good. It's glowing. It's really basic, right? But these are important things to notice. And then if you're starting making a sound, you might want to start with the oscillator. You don't have to, but let's do that today. Makes sense. Oscillator 1, oscillator 2. I can see it. So that takes care of my pitch, right? Looking at the front panel. The next section on the Odyssey looks like it's low frequency oscillator. So that's like going to give us the vibrato, right? And then the next section is an audio mixer, right? All we really have to do is look here along this line. Audio mixer, voltage controlled filter. So the mixer goes to the filter. What's in the mixer? Well, it's whatever is going to be on these switches. So if the switch is down, I'm hearing a square wave from VCO1, which is, here's VCO1. So I'm hearing this square wave. So it could be tricky, but if you follow it, it's not so bad, really, right? If I want to see what's in the mixer, I go to the mixer, and then I see the square wave down here, and it's selected, and then this is going to be the volume of the square wave, right? So let me pull this other fader down, and you can hear what's going on. We have a square wave. It's kind of high-pitched. If I wanted to switch it to sawtooth, I can do that. Slight difference, right? Square wave, sawtooth. And now there's another oscillator, VCO2, square wave. Oh, it's an octave lower. So we put them together and we get the sound. What else is going on? Well, if we look at the filter, here's the VCF, filter frequency. It looks like the filter's open and there's some resonance. So no resonance. Resonance. So it gives it a little bit of a metallic, like belly kind of sound, like the way it kind of decays. You hear the characteristic of the envelope generator, because the envelope generator is decaying, right? And here's the envelope generator. Let's jump over there so you can hear it decay. Longer, shorter. So that envelope generator, this one right here, envelope generator, ADSR, is modulating the filter. So how do I know that? Well, let's go to the filter. Here's the filter, this section right here. and it says voltage control filter right on this box. So where are the arrows going into this box? Well, we have a red slider and it says ADSR. So if it's selected, that means the ADSR envelope generator, this envelope generator, is going into the filter. And it's at this amount. So there's none. Now I'm adding more. And it's always going to be at this rate of the ADSR envelope generator at this amount. The amount is the amount of modulation to the voltage control filter, right? And the last thing that's modulating the filter, there's two things, right? The ADSR and then keyboard control voltage, which simply means when I go up the keyboard, it's going to stay kind of bright. If I don't have the keyboard control voltage, watch what happens. Kind of lose the notes. So if I bring it up, it tracks. So it's very important, and we don't have a lot because we don't want it to be that bright up there. See how bright it is? So keyboard control voltage, get the right slider, about halfway. If I didn't have it, it's too dull. And if I had too much, it's too much. Too much is too much. We want it to be where it speaks, right? And this is where it speaks. You get, and also we want to stay away from the strings because there's real strings. There are real strings doubling this sound and they're prominent. But what this is doing is just adding a little bit of different texture. And at the time it was a new sound, right? And it still works today, I think, you know, using organic orchestration like real acoustic instruments and then a real synthesizer because this is a real instrument too. Quick interruption. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. You really all mean a lot to us. We appreciate where we are today and it's all because of you. So click those buttons and leave your comments. We read them. They're so thoughtful and they give us good ideas for making videos in the future. And I also want to point the attention to Think Like a Synth, this course, because I haven't really talked about this part of it so much, but I really geared it towards a non-technical point of view. And one of the things that I had to figure out from an early, time when I was doing sessions was to avoid knob confusion. And I'm calling it that because like when you're just turning the knob and trying to get a sound and then you don't really know what it's going to do and you're just kind of listening and then it doesn't do exactly what you want and you kind of find your way. I couldn't afford that. So I came up with a method. I had some great teachers and I sort of put it all together. And it's the same method that I use right now that I've been using for 40 years on hit records and films. And it helped me be able to make the sound before I heard it. So, because I didn't always have the opportunity, there were other musicians in the room and things were going on. So, I didn't even always have the ability to put headphones on. So I could make the sound, get it close on the panel, at least 80%. And I know you can do it. And then I can dial up the sound once I pull it in, I'm on the big speakers, and then, we can do something fun with the track. So the course is designed for that. Check it out. Let me know what you think. We're offering sales from time to time. So keep an eye on it. It's at anthonymarinellimusic.com. Think Like a Synth. And let's get back to this breakdown. What else was going on? Well, I would say the next most important thing for me, because we've covered most of the sound, is the way it's played, right? And that's going to come around to the sound a little bit, but it's a really unusual part, right? Instead of going, we roll the notes. And then I walk up. But when I get to this note, it's kind of dead. So what do? There's vibrato in the original track. So how do we get vibrato? Well, we talked about a low frequency oscillator. So let's go to it. This is the frequency, so that's going to be the speed of the vibrato. Now all we have to do is get this low frequency oscillator to modulate these two oscillators. And that's how I put the dents in my fingers. So if we look at the oscillator modulation inputs right down here, I see I can get an LFO sine wave into the voltage controlled oscillator. So that's going to modulate pitch because oscillators are pitch. So if I modulate it with a sine wave, it's going to go up and down. So let's hear that. You hear it? And it's at the frequency of this LFO. Faster, about where we want it for vibrato. And then same thing on oscillator 2. LFO, sine wave, modulating the oscillator. And if I move them together, then the oscillators are moving together. If I'm moving only one, then only one is moving and the other oscillator is static. Hear the difference? One is holding pitch. It's subtle. I'll make it slower. You can hear it better. You hear how one is holding pitch? Now they're moving together when I move both faders up. So get our speed right. So I bring it in. Now this isn't the most elegant interface, right? I've talked about that before. If we had wheels like on a Mini Moog, or sliders like on a JP8, or you might have a MIDI controller, or even your mouse, you're probably a little more elegant way of controlling the vibrato. But on this model Odyssey, you kind of have to dig in there and get the sound that way. And then the last component is just the voltage controlled amplifier. That's right here. We have an AR envelope generator, and that's located right there. And with the switch up, that's modulating the amplifier. So those are all the components of the sound. There's no portamento because obviously we don't want it to slip and slide. The strings are going to do that naturally because they don't have frets. So the Odyssey is doubling the strings, and it was a new effect at the time because back then there wasn't a lot of synthesizer doubling of acoustic instruments. It adds a new quality, like a modern kind of quality, and it holds down the pitch because the violins can be a little bit more chorusy, and the Odyssey is going to be a real centered pitch. There's no detuning going on, so you can hear these oscillators are perfectly in tune. Here's detuning. Even a little bit. But I go for perfectly in tune when I'm doubling acoustic instruments. It's something that I've noticed goes a long way, and then the instruments will kind of let them do the nuance. And you do have to add the vibrato this way. And that gives this instrument, like, it can hang with the real strings because it has some expression. That is the core of the sound. You can definitely make this sound on almost any synthesizer if you have two square waves. We're using square waves because square waves are not part of the characteristic of violins. Violins have more of the overtones. They have all of the overtones decaying at more of like a linear rate. The square wave skips every other overtone and it still decays at a linear rate. So you're getting odd ordered harmonics essentially from the square wave, more like a clarinet. So it's going to give you that hollow kind of sound. So you're getting something different. And these are all just little things that I don't know if they're thought of by the performers at the time, but when you look back on it, that's the time to analyze. And this is a good point when you're making sounds for your tracks. You don't have to analyze it like this. Use your ear, use your feel, like what you think, because you're going to have to play the sound, right? Even if you're using MIDI to control the sound, get in there, get your fingers into it and express the sound. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Stay tuned to the channel for more of these breakdowns. We really love all of you. You mean everything to us because we do these videos for you. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.